I never got a B in a business class, right? But I got my first B in college in a communication class. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'm a good student. Because it went from being clear cut, there's a clear answer, to being how well you argue. And I was used to, I'd been modeled for like, here's the answer, and I wasn't arguing for my answer. And then I had to learn a different way of thinking and a different way of articulating what my thoughts were that made me a better communicator. It made me a much better thinker.
Dean McDermott, thanks for joining us on the Loyola interview series. A newer dean, so I just want to get your impressions of Loyola after coming here.
I came here in July of 2024, so it's been a little over 7 months at this point. And it is a school of enormous possibility and excitement. I came from a smaller university in North Carolina, and to be here in this amazing media market at this point in time is the type of challenge that I think any dean would be excited about. So you will hear people talk a lot about the mission of the university, which is true, and it's super attractive and one of the reasons I'm here. But it's the opportunity of the university, an opportunity at the right time, in the right place, in an amazing city. And I am excited about some of the things that we've done and all the things that we're going to be doing.
We were recently named an R1 university. Is there any role for the School of Comms in research?
So the truth is, it's probably not going to be as much of a transition as people think, because research is an integrated part of a scholarly life and an important component of what the faculty do in the School of Communication, or at least those faculty on the tenure track who have to produce research and do really cool research in AI generation and AI in healthcare and health technology, and how we can actually maximize health benefits for people by leveraging the tools of AI. So really cool stuff there. But at Loyola, and I want to say really specifically to the School of Communication, we center students at what we do. So I'm speaking as a dean, and maybe people don't want to hear this, but if the research of this faculty are going to take them away from working with our students, it's actually not the message I want to send. But if in those research teams, they're bringing students with them, engaging with students, allowing students to start as freshmen to work on these projects so that by senior year, they are asking and answering their own questions, that is an exciting opportunity that helps us stay true to our mission of helping our students go forth and set the world on fire.
Any School of Communications, there's a diverse set of majors, and just it's unlike some other schools. What is like the most popular major at schools of communication and in our School of Communication?
So at Loyola, and generally pretty consistently around the United States, in schools of communication, advertising and public relations tend to be especially attractive to students. And you can understand why. If you can teach a student to analyze an audience, create a message for that audience, and figure out the right way to get that message to the audience, they can take that skill set and go everywhere. Because that's the strategic communication. It applies to politics and health as well. You will also see generally large majors in journalism, and where we're going maybe is kind of a sports media to augment what we're doing in journalism. And we also have here communication studies, and that's a more generalist. So for students who kind of know they want to be in the communication world, but want to have a broad range of planning, some strategy, some media production, but also a depth of analysis, you'll have communication studies.
And what role does experiential learning play in all of that?
So experiential learning, let me say, when I came here, I was trying to how do I get a handle on what we're doing here that's really unique? And I had some ideas before I came, and I looked and I thought we'd go this direction. But then talking to all the faculty, you do that your first 2 weeks, you meet with everybody. And every one of them talked about the things they do with students, how they push students out of the classroom and into the surrounding community and into Chicago. And it struck me that what this school has created, and we will continue to create, is the Experience Center. It is woven into every one of our classes. Last night, a faculty member sent me photos of, she took her undergrad class out to a newsroom, had them meet with some news directors, and she just snapped some shots. And what she's doing is she's using our community as the classroom. So almost every class, but every major, the experience, how you get your boots on the street and understand what we're doing centers everything about us. So we adopted the slogan of the Experience Center in the center of experience, which is Chicago.
And what kind of experiential things can students do for like media creation? It seems like that would be something that is readily available to them.
So here at Loyola in the School of Communication, we have a lot of student-centered media. So we have Loyola Phoenix. So it's not just a student newspaper. It is a student-run newspaper with the newsroom in the ground floor or the basement of the School of Communication. So there's that. But a lot of schools might have a school newspaper. Most of them are still printing, and we are. But we also have a student-run radio station, a podcast station, and an EGO, an embedded student PR advertising agency in the School of Communication. In addition, we have Rambler Sports Locker. It's a student club where they volunteer their time to come create sport media. They go to the games, they're going to go to the tournament and follow the students, report on it, and do the broadcast on it. And we have Rambler Productions, which is maybe a little different than what most schools have, because this is a for-hire, student-run agency. So when we're filming content, you can hire our students who get paid per hour, but they use and leverage the resources of the School of Communication. So any student who wants to get involved in media and to figure out, does this work for me? We have that opportunity for them. Because sometimes let's be honest, you work with clients and you realize, I don't ever want to work with a client again. And you go a different direction. But it's better to figure that out as a sophomore than a senior.
Talk more about the advertising agency. Mm-hmm. Do they do actual work?
Yeah. So the advertising agency is an EGO, and they typically will have between 3 and 5 clients a year. One of the clients that you might have heard of is United Airlines. So United will fly the students down, or a select group of students down to Houston at least once a year, often once a semester, so that they can get more of the video and image content that they need. They do a lot of the blog posting and social media for United. But then we want to keep it more local. So we're working with Flacco's Tacos. We're also working with a realty company and a nonprofit organization. So students they come in. So we have a leadership team, and then we have some volunteers, and then we have students taking a class that weave together. So students can be in this. It has been for up to 3 semesters, and we're going to allow a 4th, which is then they elevate up. They can't be doing the same thing, but by the time they've been in it 3 semesters, they're leading teams. They are in charge of one of the campaigns.
As a dean, and I can't imagine it's easy to keep track of, first of all, there's a diverse set of majors, yep. Right? But within those majors, the change is rapid.
Yeah.
Because of technology, because of just the nature of those industries. How do you keep track of that as a dean? And how do you adjust to it?
So as an individual, I couldn't keep track of it. What I have is a team of people who keep track of it. And if you know anything about people in communication, they will always, always advocate for their area. And they will come and say, hey, here's what we need. But part of the way, it's not just keeping track of, it's trying to keep ahead of, is that in communication industries, there are national conferences. So this is where we push our faculty and staff a little bit more. We don't just go to the academic conferences. There are professional conferences we need to go. We need to look at what's coming next. We need to meet those vendors. We need to get to equipment that we can begin to test to figure out, can we weave it into our curriculum? And what do we need? So coming here, I was a dean at another university for 7 years, is the recognition that to do this well, it's an investment. It's an investment not just in equipment, but it's an investment in time and resources to make sure we are connecting with the people who are going to tell us this is the next new thing.
What are some of the things that are changing in the world of communications right now?
Well, you do want to think about the role of AI and how it is disrupting a film component, how it's disrupting writing. So I'm going to say, an aside, I teach a class. I love teaching and I love working with students. And yesterday, one of their small assignments was I gave them a job posting and said, write the first paragraph of your cover letter. And then I get them. And I'll be honest, it's possible they were all written by AI. And I told them that these are appropriate uses of AI because it's an assistant. And then I read them to the students. And I read the first sentence of every one. And they were all, I'm so excited about this posting. I'm ecstatic to read this posting. I'm thrilled to submit my application for this posting. And then there was one person who wrote it differently. And it was, as a junior in the School of Communication at Loyola in Chicago, I have been surrounded by these opportunities. And it's like that one person, that one difference set her apart. It's explaining to students about when we want to use these. So AI, people are thinking of it as disruptive, but they're also thinking that disruption is bad, and disruption can be amazing because it allows us, it's a wonderful resource, but you have to be smarter than it. You have to know what it can do and do better. So to me, I loved that moment in the class when I read it and all the students got it. They're like, mine's just like everybody else's. I'm like, it sure is. But now you know that. What can you do to make it better? So AI, but also then we think about video production. We have augmented reality. We have virtual production and what's happening that changes the way we do things. And then we have actual media creation, Adobe Firefly, which is now I can just with a few words ask it to produce something for me where I used to have to spend hours to do that. All of those are threatening because we learn a certain way and I am of a certain age and it's like, oh man, I don't want to learn something new. But once you learn it and you see it allows me to be more creative, more thoughtful. I don't want to be like it makes me accomplish more because I should be spending the same amount of time, but my product is better. And that's what we're teaching our students. We're also in our One Grad program, which is digital media and storytelling. They have focused very much on helping students have the production skills. And we've been having a lot of conversations, and it's like, that's great. Those are important. But those skills will not be the same skills they need in 5 years. So what do we need to be teaching them? So they're going to start weaving in media entrepreneurship. How do you figure out what you need to create? How do you leverage what other people are creating so that your process improves, not just your product?
How has the journalism world changed the way that schools teach journalism?
It's a big question, right? Media markets have shrunk. Newspapers have gone under. That we live in a world of news deserts, entire communities, counties, and in some cases states that have no local news, so that they're all getting national news, which between us, I think has been part of what's feeding into a distrust of news, a super unfair distrust of news. But if you live in a community and you don't know anyone who reports the news, and you go places and there's no one there, you get a sense of this distance. So instead of really thinking about, how do we feed into this, I want us, and I think Loyola is doing a great job of how do we counter it? The value of local news, the value of getting out there in the community. Loyola Phoenix does that. They cover events. They go to City Hall. They go to county commissioner meetings, and showing up matters. Loyola is also really lucky that if most of the country is in a news desert, Chicago is actually a news oasis. We have so many opportunities that many schools of journalism and programs in journalism have shrunk in a measurable amount. Loyola really hasn't. And it's because of all the possibility here in an experience center like Chicago. But we have to remain nimble. And we have to be better than what they can get through AI and better than what they can get with somebody posting on Facebook or tweeting something out. And we are better than that.
Is part of the nimbleness kind of each year evaluating what the majors are or considering adding a major, subtracting a major? How does that work?
So this is like the thing people in universities don't like to think about, which is it is our job to curate well, to figure out what we need to be adding. And part of any curation is there a time to sunset something? Is it achieving the goal that it's supposed to achieve? It's breaking somebody's heart because this is what they study. But even in journalism, it's about what do we need to be adding? So there are parts of journalism that are actually still remain really vibrant. We think about data journalism, science journalism. Those are growing where people don't always have the right amount of preparation. We think instead of just journalism, sports media, the fast-growing sport industry that appears to be growing without an end in sight, because it's one of those things that still brings communities together. And we all know how valuable it is, and it's hard to find, but we can find it in sports. But we also look at all of our other majors, and that's been part of my job here, is to sit down with some majors and look at them and say, is this time to go? So we had a major in advocacy and social change that only had 14 students in it. Now that's a very low number for a major, 14 across 4 years. So we're not looking at any full classes. And I came in as an outsider, and I'm numbers driven, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. We can't keep this. And I met with the program chair, and she's like, we need a few more years. I'm like, you've had 10. It's time. But then I had this great opportunity. We have the nation's oldest debate club, and they were debating. We had a debate tournament here. Kids from all over the country had come. And I went and judged one of the sessions. And I'm surrounded by these kids who are about public policy and changing the world and deep research and analysis. And I'm like, I was wrong. That major needs some tweaking. It needs a clear identity. So I met with the faculty there and said, come at me with a proposal. And it's what they gave me and showed me is so exciting, because it's about preparing a next generation of public policy people, potentially lobbyists, people going to law, but who, instead of thinking as an undergrad about the law, like you might in political science, it's about the argument, the persuasion, the research, the storytelling that comes with how do we advocate in ways that move the opinions of a lot of people? How do we inform people about things in ways that they're ready to hear it? It was also, quite honestly, I was so impressed because it was a major without ego. And what that means is normally, if you know faculty, when they put something together, they center it on themselves. I do this, so let me put that class in there. And the people who came, I even said to one of them, I'm like, none of the classes that you love to teach are in here. And she says, they don't fit. They don't fit with this major. This major needed these things. And so those types of changes have to be inevitable. And I was lucky to have people who kind of embraced what that change is. And we'll see what the next thing happens.
I noticed that you have an accelerated bachelor to master's program. Can you talk about that?
So right now we have an accelerated or an ABM program that would lead into the Global Strategic Communication Program. So right now, undergrads who are in advertising and PR or in environmental sustainability can start taking classes as an undergrad and then move into the Global Strategic Communication Program. But you will be the first to know. My goal is to broaden that out to lots of different majors, because they've revised this major, and now it's pretty interdisciplinary. There's a couple classes that come out from a business perspective. There are a couple classes in media production, a lot in analysis and strategy, and intercultural elements. In other words, it's a major that any undergrad would benefit from. A student from theater or criminal justice who is thinking, how do I get the skills to navigate these complex organizational situations? I need something else. So we are going to be working on allowing any student from any major to enter into that program and enter it in as the senior. So now it's shaving off time because you're taking your free electives. I'm not going to try and substitute a class in molecular biology. I'm not going to do that. But our students have free electives. Substitute that class. Let them start taking the courses. Now they are using their undergrad tuition to pay for a course that they get credit in both programs for, and they're shaving off time. The two of the most important resources, right? So that's where we're going to be going. An accelerated bachelor master's gives all of our students the opportunity to level up what they're doing and bring in a totally different skill set that when they leave, and they may go back to what they were going to do, you may be coming in as criminal justice, spend a year studying communication and go back, but your skill set is going to make you much more successful.
Are communications majors underrated? I mean, it just seems more important than people give it credit for.
And so when I started here, we were talking about some things, and one of the faculty members, who's an international faculty member, came and said, you know, I was just talking about challenges that we're facing. And she said, did you know that communication as a major doesn't always have a great reputation? I was like, no, really? Because yes, it's completely underrated. My personal story is when I started college, I was a declared business major. And I don't look it up because I don't want to make it look bad. My economics teacher fell asleep in class while teaching us. We were in small groups and he laid down on the floor and fell asleep. In my mind, he was very old, but he was probably like 45 and needed a nap. And then I took a communication class. And it changed the way I thought about the world. When you think about the impact of electronic media on the way we communicate, how it connects people across time and space. It gives us a shared experience where we never had one. And then how we leverage that to connect people. It was incredibly exciting to me. And it was also harder. So I never got a B in a business class, right? But I got my first B in college in a communication class. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'm a good student. Because it went from being clear cut, there's a clear answer, to being how well you argue. And I was used to, I'd been modeled for like, here's the answer, and I wasn't arguing for my answer. And then I had to learn a different way of thinking and a different way of articulating what my thoughts were that made me, a better communicator, but made me a much better thinker because I had to think about how somebody else was going to hear what I was writing. So yeah, it's a deeply underrated. But post-COVID, I think it's Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. He had always said, so I was dismissive of him, like there's three majors that you should study: engineering, engineering, engineering. And now there's these great bits where he was saying, that's what I used to say. And now I'm going to say, you need to study media production because we live in a world that values the media. And I loved his point. He goes, I can't find somebody who will accept less than $150 an hour to make my video. And so suddenly it's like the world is catching up with the real value of what people who are trained in communication can do.
So what is on the near future horizon for the School of Comms?
One of the things that's really exciting about coming in as a new dean, and especially having experience as a dean, is having paid a lot of attention for like the last 7 years about what's happening and what we can do to make sure our students have a great experience. Now, Loyola is a private university with private university tuition. My job is to make sure that that is a value, that they're getting something that at the end of the day, they're going to say, totally worth it. So here's a couple things that we're doing that, I don't want to say are innovative because that's patting myself on the back, but are at least different. One, we are starting a Media Fellows program. So you know what an honors program is, where students come in with a prescribed, elevated curriculum. But you started by asking about experience and experiential education. This is a different pathway. It is an experiential pathway where we're weaving in really deliberate experiences that the students go through as a cohort. Those experiences include travel, but some of it is just getting to know each other. It includes kind of directed research and creative works projects, bringing together students from film and journalism and ad PR and comm studies to come at the same project with different lenses. So that one we're really excited about. We will have our first cohort starting in the fall. And then we're going to track to see how they do. We also, I'm really pleased that the university invests a lot in scholarships for students, and the School of Communication also has some dedicated scholarships. But I wanted something different because then we are supporting their education, but we're not enhancing their experience with that. And we want to create more pathways to students, but I also want to bring more value. So we set aside, with the help of a donor, an amount of money that our students get to write a grant for to support their research and creative works projects. Because film can be expensive. You might have to rent a location. And it started with some really, go-getter students coming and saying, we need some money. And they wanted $9,000. I'm like, I'm not giving you $9,000. Listen, there were real films out there that filmed for like $4,000. And I thought, one, I also don't want to give money. You need to earn money. You need to learn that. So talked to some people, got some money, and we created, it's not very creatively titled right now, the Student Creative Research and Creative Works Grant. We'll work on a better title. But where students have to write a grant application, they have to justify their budget, they have to ask for specific things, justify their budget, put it all together in a persuasive proposal, give it to a committee, we review it. And now sometimes one of them was great, did a great job, justified everything. But some of them have justified poorly. And then we will do partial funding. We will fund these items, not these. And that might sound harsh, but imagine the learning experience. That student will do better the next time. And we are helping them learn how you actually do this in the real world, because the real world doesn't give you money. The real world makes you earn it, makes you request it, makes you put in a proposal. So it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't do that. So that's been really exciting too. And we have new majors coming. And so again, it's a lot of opportunity here. And that's really exciting.
Thank you so much for being here on the Loyola interview series.